Christine and Pigman, Miss Carlson. Today we'll make a disgusting soup that I don't like.
Yeah, so she does not like this soup, but everyone else in the house loves it. So we're going to share it with you anyway. This is called chicken gnocchi soup. It's kind of a copycat recipe from the Olive Garden's chicken gnocchi soup. It is kind of our take on this. We all love it. It's pretty delicious. You're going to need quite a few ingredients for this, but I did have everything, luckily, in my refrigerator. You could make substitutions. You certainly wouldn't have to add all of the vegetables that are here. Just make what you have work. You're going to need butter, 4 tablespoons of butter, or a half of a stick of butter.
Do we use a knife in this?
A tablespoon of olive oil, 3/4 of a cup of chopped onion. I'll just probably use about 3/4 of an onion. Half a cup of chopped celery, 3 cloves of garlic.
It might be the longest video we've ever done.
A 1/4 of a cup of flour, 4 cups of milk, a container of chicken broth. I have to get that out yet. Salt, half a teaspoon of thyme, half of a teaspoon of parsley, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of nutmeg, 1 cup of chopped carrots,
Yum.
a cup of spinach, and a package of gnocchi. So yeah, you do need a lot of ingredients for this, but it does go together fairly quickly. You could have this soup done within a half an hour.
This is probably going to be the longest video we've ever done.
Oh, it really doesn't take that long. Everything just goes all into the same pot. What you're going to do is start by putting your 4 tablespoons of butter into a big pot on your stove. We'll turn that on. You'll also want to add about a tablespoon of olive oil to that. I don't measure that, I just kind of dump in a little bit of olive oil. You'll get this going so that the butter heats up. Then you're going to need to chop your celery and onion.
I'm going to get out of here so I don't make my eyes
Oh, you think your eyes are in the water? Okay, so we're just going to slice up our onion. Just chop this up to go into the pan. You'll also add your celery and your garlic to the butter, and we'll let that saute. We'll also today probably be making some homemade bread or some homemade rolls to go with this. This is a good comfort food for sure, with some on a kind of rainy day. All right. So once you get your onions just coarsely chopped, you can put that in with the butter and the olive oil. Then we're going to take a couple of stalks of celery. I'll probably do 2 stalks. So to cut your celery, all you do is pull these stalks right off. And then I cut the top off and this bottom white part. Okay, even before I wash them, because there's no sense in washing that. I'm not going to use that. Okay, and then you're going to want to wash your celery. You'll notice that celery does get some dirt in the stalks. You want to make sure you wash those off good. So I'm going to rinse these in the sink, and then I'll show you how to do it. So to cut your celery, all I do is cut it into some strips first. We'll do 3 strips on this bigger piece. And then you can just cut it into your small pieces that way. Just run your knife through and chop it up. So again, this was 2 pretty big stalks of celery. That's probably enough. If you want more, add more. If you want less, add less. There's really not a rule to
add less.
How much celery you add.
Oh, that's fine.
Same thing with your onions and your carrots. If you like one more than the other, add more. Or if you don't have all of them, you could certainly do without. Okay, so our onions, our celery, our butter and olive oil are in the pan. Now we're going to add our garlic. Going to add 3 cloves.
Oh yeah, you better not feed us to vampires.
Okay, so I have this garlic press. If you don't have a garlic press, you will have to peel your garlic and then chop it up. The garlic press works nice because I don't even have to peel it. Garlic is kind of sticky when you peel it, so it's kind of a pain to cut. But this press just pushes all of the garlic out into my pan, and I can peel the skin right out of the press and then go on to my next garlic clove. So it's much easier.
Well, it's not that easy for your hand.
It does take a little pressure to push it through,
Oh.
but it's worth it not having to cut it.
I did not sign up for this.
For garlic?
No, for that disgusting thing that's stuck.
Oh. Alright, so our last clove. And then what you're going to do is just let this saute down before we add our thickening agents. Okay, so in your pan, if you can see that, we've got celery, onions, butter, olive oil, and garlic. Just sauteing down. You'll want your onions to be pretty translucent before you add in your flour. So we'll let that cook down for a minute or two. Meanwhile, you can go ahead and get your other veggies ready. That would be our carrots. I'm going to use probably 3 carrots for this. That will be enough. When you cut your carrots, you must peel them first. I do have a vegetable peeler. If you don't have a vegetable peeler, you can use a knife to peel it. The vegetable peelers work very well because it doesn't take a lot of the actual carrot off. It just takes the peel off. If you're peeling this by hand, you'll probably cut into quite a bit of the carrot and waste some of the carrot. Okay, so you'll want to peel both ends of that, and then each of your carrots you'll want to cut the top off and the bottom tip. Okay? I usually cut mine in half. I'm going to get a bigger knife out. And then slice it lengthwise. So you've got 2 halves that way. And then cut it in half again. Okay, just like that. See? And then you can cut them just like you did the celery pieces. That's probably small enough because these will cook down a little bit. So that's all we're going to do to cut our carrots up. You'll need about a cup of carrots, so 3 carrots will be pretty good, I think. All right, so while our onions and celery are cooking down, we're going to get ready to add in our flour. The flour acts as our thickening agent. So what we're going to do is take a 1/4 cup of flour.
Taller than your little boy.
Okay. And we're going to add it right into the pot. Then you're going to need a whisk. And then you'll just want to whisk the flour right into the butter, celery, onion mixture. The flour is going to need to cook down a little bit. That will take out that floury taste, but the flour will then be able to be used as our thickening agent. So that's what that's going to look like. Just put it right in your pan just like that. And then we're going to get ready to add our milk. As our flour is cooking down, you can measure your milk out. You'll need 4 cups of milk for this. So I would normally use a liquid measuring cup, but we're just going to save dishes and use this one. You're going to add 4 cups of your milk right to the pot. So there's 1 and 2, 3, and 4. Now sometimes if I have whipping cream at home, I will use a cup of whipping cream instead of the milk. That gives it kind of a richer taste and a thicker taste, but if you only have milk works just fine. So what you're going to do is just whisk this together and let this thicken. It's going to take a couple of minutes to thicken. As this thickens, I'll continue cutting the carrots up, and then we'll join you back here when I'm ready to add in the chicken broth. Okay, so this mixture has cooked down for about 4 or 5 minutes just to thicken up. What you'll need to do next,
Felt like 10 to me.
it wasn't 10. What you'll need to do is take a thing of chicken broth. If you don't have a big container of chicken broth like this, you can add the cans of it. Anywhere from 28 to 32 ounces of chicken broth is what you're looking for this batch. So what we're going to add this entire thing in here. And then it's just splattering a little bit. Then what you're going to do is wait for this to thicken up just a little bit more. A trick for you, yes.
Maybe you should just put on the fan.
Oh, we can turn the fan on. But a trick for this, if your soup is not thickening up as much as you would like, you can always add a little bit of cornstarch to make it a little bit thicker. what you'll do is take a coffee cup or just a cup with about a tablespoon of water in it, and then put a couple of teaspoons of cornstarch into that water. So I'll just add about 2 teaspoons of cornstarch to this, and then you'll just stir that up. Cornstarch is also a good thickening agent for soup, and if you want to dump a little bit of that in there to make it a little bit thicker, I like this soup pretty thick, so I usually do add a little bit of cornstarch to mine. And then you're just going to whisk this up and let it thicken a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to add in our other spices. My recipe problem is working.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice.
Okay, so we need a half of a teaspoon of thyme. And we'll need a half of a teaspoon of parsley as well. I'm just going to add that right into the pot. There's our thyme, our parsley, another half of a teaspoon, about, give or take, it doesn't have to be perfect, and a quarter of a teaspoon of nutmeg. So I'm just going to do half of this and sprinkle that in. Now, this recipe doesn't give you an exact amount of salt to add in. I put a little bit in right now, and then you'll just add it to taste later, however much you like. Okay, so then we're just going to whisk this up. And then next comes the rest of our vegetables and our chicken. All right, so I'm going to add in our carrots. I ended up only using 2 carrots. That gave me plenty for this. That's about a cup of carrots. Chop those up and add them to our pot. Then I'm going to add in about a cup of spinach. Again, this does not have to be exact either. I'm going to chop some of this up a little bit just so you don't get big pieces of spinach in your bites. Okay, so just coarsely chop this and add that to the pot. I also have my frozen rotisserie chicken. This is cooked chicken already. If you don't have your chicken cooked ahead of time, you'll want to cook it before you add it into the soup.
You don't want raw chicken.
Right, you don't want raw chicken, and this is not how you want to cook your chicken in this broth. So make sure you cook your chicken ahead of time. I'm not going to add all of this. I'm going to add about, probably about a cup of chicken to this.
No, you don't want raw chicken because raw chicken can make you sick.
Right. So maybe cup and a half of this cube chicken. We'll save the rest of this out and make more chicken quesadillas later. Maybe that's what Rachel will eat. Maybe. Well, the rest of us eat soup. Okay, so we're just going to stir that up. After this thickens a little bit more, we could make chicken noodle soup. You'll add in your gnocchi. The gnocchi does not take very long to cook. So once this is thick enough to your consistency, we'll add the gnocchi and then just let it simmer for about 5 minutes, and then your soup's ready to go. That's all there is to this recipe. When I add my gnocchi, I do kind of coarsely chop this a little bit because these are pretty big pieces, but you certainly do not have to do that. A lot of times I cut them in half. They're a little bit more bite-sized. So you could do that if you'd like. If you don't want to, just dump the whole package in. All right, so we'll come back after our soup is a little bit thicker and I add the gnocchi. Okay, so after your soup is kind of thickened up a little bit, this has taken about 5 minutes. I've just been stirring this as it thickens. If it's not thick enough for you, just add a little more cornstarch and water. Okay, now we're going to add our chopped up gnocchi pieces. So again, this is very roughly chopped, but most of them are about half the size. Okay, so you just add that into your pot. We're going to stir this up. I'm gonna zoom in here and put it. And this is what your soup is going to look like. Okay, so after your gnocchi has been added and you've let it simmer for 3 to 5 minutes or so, this is kind of what you're going to get in the pan. You've got some nice, thick and creamy gnocchi soup. So, thanks for joining us on day 19 of Cooking with Mrs. Carlson.